right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome at the PIM Vendors PIM for BIM Roundtable. Today we have a panel of experts discussing the gap between product information management and building information management. And I'll be your host for today. I'm 𝗕𝗿𝗂𝗶𝗴𝗶. I'm co-founder of PIMVendors.com, and we help you select the best PIM independently. We have a great array of tools that you can find on our website for free, but this session is not about me, it's about the panel. But before we start introducing them, or before they start introducing themselves to you, some quick housekeeping. You can comment on the right-hand side on YouTube. Feel free to drop any questions, any feedback you might have, and we'll weave that into the conversation. Maybe, maybe not, but we hope to hear your comments and questions there. And for sure, there is room for Q&A, for live Q&A afterwards. So even if we don't pick up your question right away, don't worry, we might get back to it. Having said that, Gregor, please introduce yourself and BIM Systems, and maybe also shine some light on the process, how product information, product data flows from PIM to BIM, or vice versa.
Great. Thanks, Stefan. Hello in the audience. So my name is Gregor Müller. I'm CEO and founder of BIM Systems, and we have founded the company in 2015, so nearly around about 8 years. And when we started with the company, we just had provided the service for BIM content creation. So what do I mean with BIM content curation? So it's like a typical business model of there's a manufacturer. The manufacturer wants to have marketing-driven BIM objects, and that means we need to model the geometry, and that means we need product information. And sometimes it comes to the question, how can we scale up this process? And when we started with the modeling, we really learned a lot. So on one side, we learned that there are product information management systems. This is why I'm very happy that Jürgen also joined the meeting today. So because this is one way for us to answer the question, how can we use data from a PIM management system to integrate this data in a seamless flow to our solution. And the big question in this case is what kind of data is needed and what kind of data is necessary. And this is why I'm very happy also to have Lars here on board, because he can tell us more about data requirements. So, and as BIM Systems, we developed different kinds of objects and content, and then we just learned it is absolutely no scaling process and no scaling service. So this is why we developed a technology. How can we scale up BIM content creation based on existing databases? But to be really honest, this is a very, very late process in the planning, because a planner normally starts with a neutral model. It just starts with a placeholder. And the whole market is thinking of how can I integrate manufacturer-specific data in the process, but as I mentioned before, the process starts in a neutral way. So, and this is why we added in our system the scope of the planner 24 months ago. So because for us at the BIM Systems, the target is to build up in BIM ecosystem. And what means a BIM ecosystem? We have two different kinds of customers. On the one hand, the planners. The planners, they need practical, neutral, generic models. They need a support how to set up their own offices, how they can make themselves BIM ready, and how can they work with neutral requirements for cost calculation, time calculation, especially sustainability and so on in their own environment. And at one certain point, they want to work with manufacturer-specific data. So this is when both worlds are combined in the process of digital sampling. So, and for this process, it is necessary to have a very, very intelligent ecosystem where both parties can work streamless together, and where it is possible for a manufacturer to bring his product information at the right time in the process. And that means just providing data and not providing marketing driven high quality objects which only have a marketing usage and not really a BIM based usage. Because based on the model we create on our database, from neutral to specific, you have the possibility to add additional services and functions in the future. So this is what we are tackling. So we are combining both worlds, and I'm very happy to have Jürgen and Lars here, because we need their expertise in the whole process.
Cool, thanks, 𝗕𝗿𝗂𝗏. Jürgen, could you take over?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, thanks. So my name is Jürgen. I'm a co-founder and CEO of 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗱𝗴𝗶. We are a PIM software company, PIM and master data management. We are on the market now for more than 20 years, so quite a while. Actually, PIM, so what we're talking today about, is existing even longer. So I think this is 40, 50 years or something almost, when the idea started coming up. But well, 20 years we are on the market, and is a PIM, product information management software, and MDM software company. We are specialized on managing products, managing data, managing all kinds of rich information if needed, managing portfolios, providing the tools to maintain all the data, providing the tools to match, merge, cleanse data coming from other systems, providing environments to model data structures. You know, each of our customers, different products, different product range, might require different data model. So here these solutions provide a lot of flexibility. And we also provide the tools in order to make this data available, so to distribute it to the different channels. These channels might be e-business channels, shops, but also other systems like e-procurement systems, like engineering tools, whatsoever. So whatever purpose. And one of the philosophies behind it is simply that because you never know what you need to support in the future, the task today is simply to manage your data in a way that the granularity that you have in the end is fine enough to simply support all purposes. So then you're very flexible and you can react immediately if something new is showing up. And so for us, this whole BIM topic, building information modeling, this is kind of one channel where we need to provide the data for, in order to make it as easy as possible for our customers to provide the data in order to create those models, or directly provide the models if needed and distribute it to all the business partners like architects, building construction companies, and so on.
Yeah, cool. Lars, could you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thank you. Hi, everybody. My name is Lars. I'm the CEO of 𝗕𝗿𝗏𝗏. We are a company that is there to accompany other companies in their way to use building information modeling and everything that comes beyond it. So that's what we do. We're located in the beautiful city of Vienna, where I'm sitting right now. And yeah, thanks a lot for having us. Maybe a very short introduction, what me as a person has to do with PIM, which is not a lot, to be honest. So I'm an architect by education, but I kind of took a wrong turn over a decade ago when BIM wasn't even called BIM yet, and decided to get into integrated data workflows for interdisciplinary planning and construction. However, I ended up in this position, being CEO of 𝗕𝗿𝗏𝗏. Like I said, our company is there to help other people use it. This means we do consulting and teaching, but we also do technical development, setups, and everything. However, it is worth to mention that our company belongs to a way bigger company, which is ATP, Architects and Engineers. And ATP is like one of the biggest integrated planners in Europe. I think it's #1 in Europe and some place 15 in the worldwide ranking of biggest architectural offices, having some 1,200 architects and engineers in our company at the moment, of which like 25 people are under the label of 𝗕𝗿𝗏𝗏. However, for some 10 years, my team and me are trying to make ATP work in a fully integrated BIM way. We've come a long way. We've come along a lot of systems, a lot of ideas, a lot of things, and ended up creating a standard which is by now used across 6 different nations and in very large scale projects in like high-rise buildings. So we're not doing any bridge or anything like this, but in like usual construction, this could be hospitals, this could be like big office buildings, high-rise buildings, all these things. So that's where we're coming from. And so my team and I are basically in the middle of everything that is concerning the whole BIM technology and the whole all the use cases that are linked to it. So ATP works in pretty much any use case you can think of when you talk about BIM. So this is like, okay, of course, the 3D modeling and the 2D plans, but there's estimating, there's simulating in all different disciplines, from civil engineering, building physics, MEP engineering, all the simulations. So we are kind of in the middle of everybody, of these 1,200 people asking us, guys, make this work, right? So our job is to create interfaces, to customize templates and setups, and also to create the right set of tools for everybody to work. Now, the connection between Gregor and me, he kind of told how the story began with his company. So, you know, producing BIM objects for manufacturers, literally for manufacturers. So manufacturers having BIM objects that planners never wanted, to be honest. And how we connected is, you know, we are a joint venture at the moment, and like my job is to tell Gregor's guys how planners actually think of data and workflows and data models. Also, I have to mention there's also contractors, like building construction companies, that we serve the same system. So all of them need a BIM setup that is somehow linked to product information, but only somehow. And the question is how, and that is what I'm happy to discuss today with you guys.
Right, cool. I think both the world of PIM and the world of BIM are huge, are bigger than we can touch today. And I think it's good to note that yes, there's more PIM data than just BIM related product data, and there is more to building information modeling than just product data or object data. I think that definition question is sort of a result of I think one of the first challenges that I want to introduce today and discuss today with you. And I'm very glad that we have the 3 of you in a room where each of you has a different viewpoint, different use case, basically of product data in BIM. And that first challenge is communication, right? Communication of product data across the value stream. So what I would like to discuss with you is how to streamline communication in an environment that is so complex, right? So it contains multiple stakeholders, both multiple users. So you have the planner, you have designers, you have the construction agencies. Those are different users within companies, but there's also different companies involved. So across multiple organizations and multiple organizations with different incentives. It's between different systems, right? So between different IT systems, PIM, computer-aided design, building information model, and of course, even across the sort of fourth dimension, which is time, right? So the whole life cycle of the business, or life cycle of the building, this information will be used. Maybe start again with you, Gregor. If you look at that challenge, I think BIM Systems sort of has one view on how to solve that challenge or how to tackle that challenge. Where do you see this communication challenge and going?
Yeah. So when we're talking about communication, I think we really need to make a difference between we're talking in which country. So the situation in the German-speaking market is totally different, like in Europe, and totally different, like in North America, because we have a different setup there based on the framework. What do I mean with setup and framework? It is in Germany, you have a lot of small different planning offices, in average around about 3.5 planners with a different software solutions. So, and then is the first issue concerning communication, because it is not possible to streamline the information without a lack of information between different software solutions. So this is one situation we are struggling at the moment. And this is why a lot of BIM experts are using one solution, like let me name it Revit Autodesk, because they don't have these issues between different software topics. But our vision and our mission is, when we just think some years in the future. So you have the task that everybody who produces products needs to deliver information. It's doors, windows, ceilings, roofs, and so on. So every product you just can imagine need a digital twin in a BIM process. So all these companies, they, in ideal worlds, they have a PIM solution. And then it is just a defined export from a PIM to a BIM. And this is one thing, Jürgen and I, we had a long discussions, what kind of data is necessary, because there isn't a standard. So what we did, we built up with Lars and his team a standard, what is necessary based on real use cases. And then it's just data mapping between existing software solutions and an intelligent BIM ecosystem. So, and this was the reason why we developed a database, because we do not know what will happen in the future. We do not know which kind of software solutions need to be connected in the future, because it's not only the thing provide information from PIM to us, it's also the thing that not only a planner wants to have information by pressing one button, it's also the calculation guy, it's also the subcontractor, and so on and so on and so on. So you really have the issue that you want to have data at several processes from different stakeholders by just pressing one button. And the challenge is not to overload the BIM authoring software, because when there is too much data in it, you will kill it. So and then we're just talking about the planning, and then later on we want to go in from planning into construction, into operation, into deconstruction, and so on. So you always need an idea how you can work with a database in the middle to connect the supplier, the manufacturer, the different stakeholder, to connect different life cycles of a building with a predefined template, which is flexible to be agile in the future, what can happen for additional process and so on. So this is what our thinking in communication. We cannot tell you what will happen in the future, but we need to be very open, because the situation will change. But with an alphanumeric database in the middle, you are very flexible.
Yeah. Jürgen, if you then take the source of data and the challenges the manufacturer might have in pushing data from where it is born, right, at the manufacturer through the whole pipeline, through the whole life cycle. One solution is the solution Gregor proposed. What are the challenges that you see with product data and where it originates, and how do manufacturers deal with that?
I think the processes in order to manage product data in general, and also get a very high quality in the end. This is, of course, you have to implement it. It's a whole philosophy behind it, and it requires quite some change if you do not have anything yet. But this is this is doable. So that's can really be achieved quite fast. The issue here and the problem around BIM is simply that not everything is kind of standardized. This makes it tricky. So it's not such a problem to collect, maintain, and put through a quality assurance process all the data that you need in order to describe your products, like all the features and so on. Also rich data, animations, whatever. So all this is not such a big issue. It's a different thing in order to create the BIM models themselves. That is a lot of work if you want to do it individually. There are some companies and service providers around who offer this as a service, so then you pay per model, kind of. This can be quite expensive in the end. Still, I think they're doing very good business. So many companies are doing it this way. But of course, if you want to have it more flexible, then it requires, of course, some kind of standardization. And this is actually what BIM Systems was doing. So they were thinking about something like a neutral model together with a kind of classification where they specify the data that is needed in order to make this neutral model specific. We can, again, then in the PIM system, this is what we are doing, makes this classification available. So when you, for example, maintain the data for a door, what exactly from all the data is required for the BIM model. So you can see it while you maintain the data. And you might also make this part of a quality gate. Like you cannot release this door to marketing and sales process as long as not everything that is required for the BIM model, maybe, and for some other things, for different channels and so on, is really available and is approved and so on. And you can even establish a specific view where you see all the data and only the data that is needed for the BIM model itself. If you set it up that way, then you have the data there and you can provide it whenever you want to do so. Then with an interface established to the database from BIM systems, and then they can include it and build the specific models when needed.
Cool. I mean, maybe Jürgen, could you also touch on the question from Will? So he asks, can you talk about the details from how PIM connects with BIM? And I think
I will.
From
I will.
You will. Okay. No, sure. Go ahead.
No. I didn't want to take it from Jürgen, so please.
No. It's no. Just go on. Yeah. So what we have different scenarios. We have basically, as I already mentioned, for us, BIM is one channel, one format that we need to provide, among others. And we have different scenarios. I think this scenario we're talking about here, this is very smart because it's extremely flexible. We have more conventional scenarios where we actually have the BIM data, which is also just files, available and manage it directly in the PIM system together with the products and make it available from here for download or whatever through different channels. So this is a more conventional, more traditional concept. So not that flexible. Of course, you can also have some flexibility here where you can have some variables included. So do not need to have a separate model for each version of your products. That's clear. But still, that's a kind of old way of doing it. And now it's more about having a classification to specify what exactly is needed and make this available. So this is a more modern way of doing things.
Okay, cool. Lars, anything to add, or maybe
yeah,
also examples?
definitely.
Yeah, but also maybe examples of how it. I mean,
Yeah.
how it goes wrong, how you solve it. Yeah.
Being aware that we will talk about standards and standardization later, I will not go too much into that and keep that for the next slide. However, or for the next slide. However, now, I mean, from the BIM world and from the BIM perspective, where planners and construction companies are located, all the questions you've been asking are answered way without even touching PIM in general, right? So nobody really thinks of PIM when you talk to planners or construction companies. However, some of them do need data, and some of them need data in a very precise way, and some of them need data in a more general way. Let me see how to connect this. So, I mean, cross-disciplinary communication between all the different stakeholders throughout planning and construction and handover to facility management is a big challenge. However, there is a lot of technology ready to solve communication across these disciplines. So there's new collaboration platforms. There is the so-called BIM collaboration format, which is like a 3D logic to comment things. There is issue management. There's a lot of things have really been put up over the last years that really enables the industry to really communicate in an efficient, element-based way. However, this doesn't have to do anything with PIM yet. Now let me get to how to connect the different systems from PIM and CAD and BIM, which is quite an easy answer. So the people using BIM software do this to solve their use cases. That is, they do simulate, they do, I don't know, evaluate, and do mass estimation, all these things. So there is different types of planners that need different information inside their models, and there's different planning stages and construction stages where certain information coming. And that is something you have to understand when it comes to connecting PIM data to BIM models. Now, for example, an architect is not really likely to really look for product information whatsoever. So, I mean, there is architects looking for the right window, looking for the right door, obviously, but the discipline where this is way, way more important is, for example, everything that concerns MEP, right? So HVAC engineers, electrical engineers, they need actual product information. Now, they need a model to generate it all, and this should be a neutral model in terms of it looks like the way they want it to look in terms of plan graphics, in terms of 3D detailing and everything. But and it has to be a consistent data model in the background with their parameters, their attributes that they are ready to put into the interfaces, to simulation, to estimation, all these things. So what you need is a system to really cope with all of your use cases, and you have to keep track of that. However, now when it comes to real product data, the big question is how do they come in? And there is different solutions to have this, but of course, it would be a very smart idea to connect PIM and BIM in a way that you have a BIM setup, a BIM system where you can just add product data whenever you feel ready for it, or whenever you feel the need for it. So let's take the MEP engineer first. He is, for example, putting a fire damper or something else in his model. He does this with a general object, with a neutral object, and then thinks to, okay, now, so out on the market, there is not any dimension, there is not anything, following my specification. So this guy will start looking for a product, giving him actual product data like volume and all these things, and fire rating and all these things that he needs for a simulation. So that would be the entry point for an MEP engineer where he needs product information. However, at least in the German-speaking area, we have to do a tendering, which is product neutral, as everybody is aware of. So what I don't like to have in my model is like the ready-made BIM object that I can download that has its own classifications, that has its own attributes, that has its own geometric detailing and everything. I don't want to put this into my model. What I need is the information themselves to connect into my attributes and my setup. So that is the main thing that we're trying to cover with this BIM systems platform that Gregor is presenting today. So that is the main idea. So what we deliver is the neutral data model that a planner from any discipline is after when he wants to do his use cases. where the product information come in the planning stage is exactly at a point where I just explained how this works. Now later on, when it comes to construction, and later on even hand over to facility management, imagine the contractor to have the same problem, right? So he has a neutral planning model. He doesn't know who's the manufacturer of a specific element, like our fire damper. And now he has the same problem again. And what he needs is first of all, a tool to find products, suiting products, following the specification that the planner did before, find the right product, and then get all the product information inside his neutral object again to deliver it to some CAFM or whatever system from facility management side. So that is actually what it takes. You need a integrated data model for planning and construction, which is basically enabling you to do any of your use cases, and then some connection that just is able to put product information inside your objects. So that's the main focus that you should have when you think about this is a connection to connect to a certain standard. However, of course, for example, Revit is not as too strong a tool in the German-speaking area, but it is a global player, and everybody's aware that everybody using Revit is having his own setup and his own standard and his own attributes and level of geometry and all that. So to cope with this, actually our solution is to put up one standard on the Revit side that is ready to solve any discipline and any contractor. And then have this connection tool that Gregor is developing that is really connected to any PIM system. So that is the actual solution that we're providing, but of course you can think of it in a neutral way as well.
And I think one very important thing was what Jürgen mentioned. So we have two different ways. So because we as a BIM system, we disrupt our own business model from the past. So because one way today is there are service providers, and you're totally right, they earn a lot of money to create high quality geometry with manufacturer specific data. But just to remind you, it is product information management and not BIM information modeling and not BIM geometry explosion modeling. Because the problem is with the geometry, it's no scalable process for the manufacturer. So he really needs to invest a lot of money by updating his content, by updating his library and so on. So and this is why we just thought about an approach. How can we use planner optimized libraries? We know these libraries can be used by planners in all different kinds of requirements. And how could we easily add information of manufacturer to this and using a communication platform with a connection to a PIM, because then we really have a scalable process and then a manufacturer can calculate an ROI on the whole project. This isn't possible at the moment. So this is why we are thinking the situation in a totally different way.
Yeah. I mean, we've been touching standardization, and we're going to get to the standards, but I want to move first to maybe already we touched upon it lightly is incentive alignment, because one way of solving the communication issue is by making sure that everyone is incentivized to use the right communication process, the right tools, the right formats, the right standards. But there needs to be incentive alignment in the first place. And I want to take actually one step further away, because we have been focusing really on I would say the start of the building information modeling phase, but I also want to take into account, well, we touched on it, but the contractor phase and even the facility management phase, or even the deconstruction phase. How do you think we can solve the problems there that exist between the timelines, right? So building information, product information is put in at the beginning of the process, but it is used much later in the process. How can we make sure that even at the beginning or across the full timeline of the building's life, make sure that the incentives are aligned for each individual contributor to the building information model? Maybe start with does anyone want to start? I don't want to start with Gregor every time.
I can say some words.
Yeah, Jürgen, yeah.
Yeah. So again, coming from the data side, I think anyway, the whole information on the product life cycle should be included. This also means all the maintenance information and everything, because that is one of the very smart results from building information modeling in general. That you use it in a planning phase, but then you have a model available that holds all information and all data of what you have, then what you did really build and construct in the end. So including maybe in the beginning you have kind of neutral door, window, things like that, and in the end it's vendor specific. It is this door from this vendor with these characteristics and so on. And if you have such a model available for the whole building or whatever you're doing, and this also includes all the maintenance information, then this is simply the best that you can achieve, because everything, absolutely everything is covered, and from here you can manage the rest. So there's a significant advantage if you. So in the end, you kind of end up with again a kind of digital twin of what you build in the real world. So you start with the digital in the digital world, and then you end up in the real world, and you still have the digital twin readily available. So that's, I think, the best that you can achieve. And so in general, again, when it's about the PIM, so product information management process, I think here it is key that you really do not only focus on the marketing and sales information, and then maybe on all the data you need in order to use the product itself, but really also cover what comes next. So also cover the maintenance process and everything, and make this available. So this should be part of the package always. And not only for BIM, but also for BIM, of course. But you also need it when you, when your business partners maybe later on need additional information and so on. So if you collect it together with the product in one process, always, and have it available immediately, that's the easiest way to manage it.
Yeah. And I understand that, right? But it's a classic prisoner's dilemma problem, right? So it's best if we all cooperate and if we all invest in the correct data. But as a manufacturer, I have limited resources. Maybe I should put all those resources in marketing and selling, making beautiful pictures of my products, my doors and my windowsills, and push that to the market instead of investing in exact building information model and object data. How can we make sure that all manufacturers do that, or do this, right? Invest in that phase instead of just focusing on glossy catalogs or websites where people can download the information and sell it.
I think the awareness for this topic is extremely high. So and this really globally. So everywhere, wherever you go. So BIM is hot at the moment for everybody in that industry. And I don't know of any vendors actually who do not have it on their agenda or are already deeply invested into these topics. But several times it was already mentioned. So we do have a kind of standardization issue to some level still. It is a lot of effort, the way most are doing it today with external service providers and so on and so on. I think that's a key point. I also don't think that there is any issues about what is the benefit, or does it bring any benefit at all. I was just, I don't know, some weeks ago, I was reading something that just alone in the US facility management industry, they were estimating around almost $20 billion. That is, more or less needed just to cover the today's existing interoperability issues and things like that. So inefficiencies in the process, which you would immediately save if you have building information modeling overall process. This is a lot of money, and this is for all parties. So maybe except for those parties who manually create the models today. So they of course earn a lot of money with the manual process.
Yeah.
But for the whole industry, it is big advantages. And even so, the idea already exists for quite some time, and also practical applications exist for quite some time. There's still my personal feeling, there's still quite some issues in standardization. There's still quite some issues in interoperability. There's proprietary solutions around, different concepts around, things like that. I think that is the main issue that we are facing here. But not on the PIM part of it, not on the data management part of it. Yeah. This is, as I was already saying, relatively easy, and also covering, even maintenance data and all this stuff. This is also quite common in industry today. So for the manufacturers, that's not an issue to set up the process in such a way and maintain the data in such a way. It's even more efficient. It even saves them time in data maintenance, and they save costs. So if a manufacturer is saving costs, they always do it.
Okay, so currently we lose $20 billion a year in product data maintenance, but what you're saying is this is a problem that is solving itself when we get to sort of maintenance of more modern buildings, where this is currently
not in product data maintenance. The industry is losing around $20 billion. Yeah. Because of interoperability issues and because of
okay. But
the idea is not fully working in practice in many cases.
Yeah. I'm not sure, Lars, if you wanted to add something, but
yeah,
go ahead, and then we'll move to the final topic.
Right into the standards again, because
but that's fine. Let's segue into the third and final.
But Jürgen is absolutely right. So there is a lot of challenges about standards yet. However, especially in the German-speaking area, we are really a lot into standards, but we're really slow to put them up. So that is like a big issue at the moment. So everybody wants standards, but nobody really wants to create them, and it is taking forever. And it should be out there for 10 years, but it isn't. However, the more general recipe to your question is quite straightforward. So thinking from the grave to the cradle of the building, what do I need when I really want to deconstruct this building? What do I need in the stage of operation in terms of what is in my CAFM system, what is in my all my other building automation system, all these things, right? So that is something that is not really connected to BIM at all. That is usually connected to some ERPs and CAFMs and all these things. BIM data in a perfect world just put some basis in it, but there's a lot of stuff putting next to it. And like my simple formula is everything that has a cable or a pipe to it is complicated. Everything else you can forget about, basically, in operation stage. However, there is standards like, I don't know, the British 𝗕𝗿𝗶𝗴𝗶 for maintenance, all these things, right? There is all these standards. When you talk to German-speaking facility managers, they're like, no. This is way far away from what we need. But when you actually start talking to them, it's like, so what do you guys need? They're far away from putting up a standard. So this is what we need in the operation stage. Bad news. However, now we start thinking about the grave part, right? So this is like the very end, and how do we deconstruct things in 30 years? And how do we keep data for this available the next 30, 50, 100 years? I don't think this is a very smart idea to talk about this yet. However, what you need to really successfully create I'm not a fan of the digital twin, however, to actually create a consistent data model over all planning stages is you need every stakeholder from planning to construction to operations to at least be involved in creating a project standard, right? And if you're like a big building owner and you build like buildings every year, you can think about creating your employee information requirements. You can think about all that and like force your planners and contractors and operators to just follow this standard. But that is by now the industry standard for big buildings is this is how it works. So you need one standard that someone tells you to use, and that's it. And that's the only way you can do this successfully. And the bad news is that having no real standards for it out there in terms of actual standards, it's up to the building owners now to define them, which is not good news for everyone delivering data, right? And which is still, the big challenge. And like Jürgen said, interface issues, data transfer issues, and so on and so on. However, coming from a world where this actually works once in a while, right? A building owner tells everybody, okay, this is how you work. Then you can actually say, yes, this is how it works. And being in the situation of being the one having an integrated data model for the whole building life cycle, it's always a nice situation to tell building owners, guys, you could tell us to do it this way, but we could also explain you how to do it. So that is a good situation, being a big planning company, but obviously most of the market is not in this situation.
Yeah, but it's a complex environment, right? So we have different countries with different regulations, different standardizations, different phases with different standardizations, different standardizations between different toolings when it comes to communication, so communication standards, right? I think Joseph mentioned 𝗕𝗿 classification for product data. Do we need one more standard to rule them all, or how do we solve the standardization issue? Is it giving the builder all the decision-making power?
Yes, and so the most effective way is to build up a standard which is used in real use cases, and then to map the different existing standards against this standard. Because to be really honest, we are always talking about 𝗕𝗿, OmniClass, E-Class, IFC, and so on and so on and so on. This is just the manufacturer side. Just go into the planning offices and talk with the planners. They will tell you, hey guys, we have our own standard. So we don't care about the standard of a manufacturer, because I have a requirement, I have to fulfill this requirement, and this is what I think what is needed. And this chart starts already with naming of attributes and so on. And then this planner will tell you, hey guys, this is my standard, but this guy, we're just planning a building for him, he wants to have his own standard compared to our standard. So the big issue what you need to solve is a multi-dimensional mapping between different stakeholders. So, and for this, you just need one central data layer. And when you have this data layer, you map the different data layers between the different parties, and they just integrate their data via a BIM system. So, and then that's it.
And well, honestly, it's too bad that everybody cannot see this little slide that you put up in the preparation slides, because I really love that cartoon. It's great. So there's basically okay, there's two people talking about creating standards, and there's 14 out there, and they're like, no, 14 standards are not good. Let's create our own, and then you have a 15th one. Honestly, we created the 16th and the 17th one to actually cope with it. However, the standard number 16, which is mine, that I've been developing with ATP over the last 13 years, is one that we can actually, first of all, say it does cover the use cases. And now, having new standards coming up, classification standards, attribution standards, all these things coming up, we can always say, okay, this is the central line for everything, and we can, yes, we have to do the mapping. We have to do the mapping for basically every second building owner telling us, no, you have to, call it this way, call it that way. We can say, okay, this is, a pain in the ass, honestly, but we can do it because we have a consistent data model in the middle. And so everybody that is really trying to cope with this will need some central system in the middle covering it all, and then is able to do the mapping, which is still a lot of work. And but AI and everything will solve these things sometime soon. But there is still a lot of mapping to do. And I think the main idea is to really focus on the own processes and say, okay, this is my working standard, and then see what's left and right, and see, okay, so my building owner wants this, my building operator wants that, my construction company wants this, and I as a planner or anyone else in this circle have to focus to really cover my use cases first and have a consistent system in the middle of my processes, and then start mapping to everyone's else demands. That's our recipe to solve it. And obviously, the more common tools you use, like for example, when you do not use Revit but ArchiCAD, you can for example guarantee there is like a consistent data model inside this tool. So you can link to anything like ISC or a Uniclass or whatever quite in an easy way, because there is a consistent data model. Using Revit, you will need some system like ours or anyone else's to have a central data model, because in Revit you can just really do anything basically. So that is basically the recipe for it. So either choose a tool that has a consistent data model inside your own little part of the game, or if you want to use Revit, use something that helps you to align with everything else, and that is like a ready-made system.
Jürgen, how do you see this from a PIM product information perspective, right? So all these different standards that are competing or additions on each other, or linked hierarchically, updated continuously. How is that seen from a PIM perspective?
Yeah. Well, so of course, so PIM itself is, because it's three-dimensional and so on, has some complexity with the models, with the 3D models and things like that. Generally, the standard situation in all industries is similar. So you do have, in some industries, you have more established standards, but then still the more powerful players do not really stick to those standards. They adjust a little bit, make it their own, and want to have the data in a specific format for them, more tailored for them and their systems, and so on. So it's actually very common that you need, as a manufacturer, that you need to support a lot of different formats according to lots of different standards and classifications. And we do have customers also in other industries, not the building material and supply industry, that easily cover 60, 70, 80 or more different formats they have to provide to their customers or to the market, which can be everything: E-Class, E-Team, Profit Class, E-Cals, RosettaNet, whatever, GS1, so all that stuff. And very often with a specific kind of flavor to it, like I want to have BIM-Inhalte E-Class, this version, and a little bit different, so it fits better to my system, if you are one of the powerful players. So this is very common. So just from a PIM, product information management perspective, this is not an issue. So these systems are designed for this purpose. They are designed in a way that you can relatively easy map your data to different classification and structures, with auto mapping and everything included, and then make the data available in the format and that is needed. So that's not really the problem. The only thing is, you just need to have something, what you make available then in the end, and at best something that is at least somehow common, so you do not end up with something individual all the time. So that's of course not that good. Right now, I really have to say what I was already mentioning. Most common at the moment is really the other way around. So having service provider creating those PIM models and making them available via a PIM system for different users and different consumers, whoever needs it. But this is quite some effort with those external service providers. A more flexible model, like we were discussing here. So you have this neutral models, and then you have a classification structure, what data you need in order to make it specific. That is, of course, much more efficient. This is very, very simple to implement. This is why we're also doing it, and support the technology from PIM systems. And it has significant advantages for the manufacturers, of course. in the end, for all other parties, I think for them it's just important that they get those BIM models and they get it in high quality, not so much how they've been created. So the creation process, I think that's very efficient and very easy to handle from PIM technology side. So it's now, of course, the question. Is this a technology which in the end will see a lot of application? So many jump on the train and use it this way or not, but I think it's something that sits in between. So you have the design tools and everything. Here you need the models. You have the PIM systems, they can provide the data, and then in the middle you still have this kind of missing link, how to create the BIM models and make them available. And I think that's a very smart way of doing it. Mm-hmm. And as it is little effort, so at least from a manufacturer side, if you do have a PIM infrastructure, then this is really no big effort in order to support this process, and maybe even just give it a try and see how it works in practice and how it resonates. Yeah, so
just one more.
We will make it available as a standard interface and done. Yeah. And even this is no big effort.
Just one more mapping to do, and you do that once, and it's
exactly just more mapping to do. Make it available directly, and we made an agreement with BIM systems, so they will send us notification if anything is changing. We make it available, implement it, done, finished.
Yeah, and this is why, because we are just separating the information from the geometry.
Yes.
So we have the geometry which is usable and needed for planners. So it's a very user centralized topic. So and then we can tell the manufacturers just deliver us information, and information is alphanumeric data. So we can push this very easy from Jürgen via 𝗕𝗿𝗂𝗰𝗁 to BIM systems, and it's a very, very scalable process. So, and when the manufacturers want to invest more money and they want to have high qualified BIM renderings, they are welcome to spend it, but they just need to ask their competitors how many downloads in real projects they have. They can't tell you, and I'm not counting the projects downloads from India or other countries. I'm really talking about real downloads in projects, because when you talk with the big planning offices, they're not allowed to download content from manufacturer sites because it's just not usable.
Additionally, it's even it's like a big challenge to handle this once you have some manufacturer's objects in your model. This can really crash everything, right? Like in bigger project stages, when you download LOG 500 objects, this can actually crash your model. This can actually stop the project to work, right? And of course, everything that is not aligned in terms of parameters, in terms of attributes, in terms of geometry, will produce problems from starting to create a plan that looks the way you want it to look, until to every kind of estimation, simulation, calculation, everything, right? So that is why I think it is a good idea to have a centralized data model in the middle. And yeah, obviously this is one solution for it. And by the way, which is one that we're about to follow with ATP as well. So 1200 planners will use this soon. So they've been using the content we're talking about, the data model that is produced on our site that we developed together with Gregor's guys. But we will put like one of the biggest planning offices into the system soon.
All right, cool. I have many more questions and things I would like to discuss, but we're also ending or nearing the end, and I'm going to wrap up this this session. I really enjoyed the conversation. I thought that the PIM part of the process was much more complicated and complex, but that's because I'm from that world, and I know that even though Jürgen explained it quite nicely and made it sound easy, I think that is the right way to do it. But in practice, I think it's still more complicated. Still, I think we correctly identified that in the later stages of communication and inter-company, organizational, inter-systems communication, there's still much more to do. And I'm really glad that we have found a solution in exactly the issue that the graphic comic is trying to warn us from, namely creating another competing standard and mapping all standards to this one standard to rule them all. But regardless, I'm really glad that that this is happening, and I glad that we had this conversation. I'm glad that you made the time available. So I want to thank the panel. Thank you for joining us. And I want to thank the audience. Thanks for joining us and asking your questions. We will make the recording available on our website and on YouTube. And we'll share it with everyone, even if you joined later. So you can re-watch the full recording if you'd like. And I would like to invite you all to follow this series, because it's a session in a series on product information management and building information management, so PIM and BIM. So keep an eye on our LinkedIn page and on your socials, and be sure to check out our next session. So thank you all for joining, and see you all next time.